Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make key lime tarts, and this is what it looks like. It starts with a sweet almond pastry crust. We're going to fill that with a rich and creamy key lime filling, and then on top we have lots of whipped cream. So to start, we are going to make our pastry crust. Now I know key lime pies, tarts, can be made with a pastry crust, which we are going to do today, but sometimes you also see them with a graham cracker crust. Now, if that's what you prefer, you can go to the joybaking.com website, and we do have a recipe for a key lime pie with a graham cracker crust. But today, pastry crust. So if you're using a stand mixer like I am here, use your paddle attachment, or you could use a hand mixer for this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sift all our dry ingredients together. So I just have a strainer. If you have a sifter, you could use that. And you will need 1 1/4 cups, which is 160 grams of all-purpose flour. And then you will need a scant 1/3 cup, 30 grams of almond flour, or it's also called almond meal, which is really what it is ground almonds. Now you can buy it. I find you can find most grocery stores now either on your baking aisle or the health food section for some reason, or you can buy it online, of course. Now if you kind of said, I don't want ground almonds, because you could also, the other thing you could do is just take 1/3 cup of blanched almonds and process them in your food processor. But if you kind of said, I don't want ground almonds, then you could replace that with an equal amount of all-purpose flour. And then we will need a 1/2 cup of firmly packed confectioner sugar. That's also known as powdered sugar or icing sugar, and that's 65 grams. And as always, I prefer to weigh my ingredients rather than to use the cup measurement. So time to buy your scale. You will need 1/4 teaspoon, 1 gram of salt, and 1/4 teaspoon, 1 gram of baking powder, just to give our pastry a bit of a lift. And then I've just put a piece of parchment paper. You could just do it into a bowl. Just sift it. This kind of aerates the mixture, our dry ingredients, plus if you have any lumps, it gets rid of that. There we go. And then carefully, I'm going to transfer this into my mixing bowl. And so what you will need is 5 tablespoons, which is 70 grams of butter. I'm using unsalted here. You could use salted. You want your butter cold and put it into small cubes. So what we're going to do is beat this on medium-low speed. You don't want it on high speed. And we're going to beat this, it'll probably take a few minutes because it's on low speed, until you don't see any visible signs of the butter and the mixture's kind of grainy, mealy, which I will show you. But this can take a couple minutes. So be patient. Okay, so we are done. So this is what you're looking for. If you can see that, it's just nice and grainy. And now you will also need 3 large egg yolks, 52 grams, and have your egg yolks cold. And then I'm going to also flavor my pastry with the seeds from 1/2 vanilla bean. So, and this is vanilla bean, if you don't know. And you want it, when you buy them, you don't want them all dry and shriveled. You want them nice and soft and pliable. Now, if you don't have vanilla beans, you could just use a 1/2 teaspoon, 2 grams of pure vanilla extract, or you can just leave it out because it's just for a little bit of flavor. Now when you're trying to get the seeds out, just take a sharp knife and cut it right down the center, and then you can kind of just peel it back because the seeds are inside. And then I just take the back of my knife and just run it down to get the seeds out. Sure, get them all. And then keep your vanilla bean, let it dry out on your counter, and then put it in your granulated white sugar bowl, and then you'll have vanilla scented sugar, which is great for your baking. So I'm just going to put that in there with my cold egg yolks. And then I'm just going to beat this on, again, medium-low speed until it's all mixed together. Okay, so we are done. As you can see, that is not a difficult batter to make at all, because this pastry is really kind of like a cookie. It's very tender and crisp, and it's very easy to work with. So now we have our large ball here of our pastry. Now I'm going to make, as you can see here, we're making individual key lime tarts. You don't have to. If you didn't have, like I'm going to use a 4-inch, which a 10-centimeter tart ring. If you didn't have these and you don't want to bother buying them, then what you can use is just either an 8 or a 9-inch, which is 20 or 23 centimeter tart pan, like this, or a tart ring. So if you are going to do in the large tart pan, then what you want to do is just wrap your pastry in some plastic wrap and then form it into a round, and then you're going to chill it. But since we are going to make tarts, what I'm going to do is divide my pastry right now into 6, because this recipe will give you 6 4-inch 10-centimeter tarts. I'm going to divide it into 60-gram pieces. And as you can see, I mean, you can do it, just kind of eyeball it, but a scale. As you know, I plug scales all the time, digital scales. So, okay, so I do have a little bit left over. I'm just going to keep that because you never know, you might need it. So now what I do is I just have a little piece of plastic wrap, because what we're going to have to do is chill this. It's too soft. We're going to roll it out and it's way too soft. So I'm just going to put it into, rounds and then wrap it. You want to wrap it well because we have to chill it and you don't want it to dry out in the fridge. So I just put a couple like that and wrap it up, put it on a plate or whatever you have. And then what we're going to do is put it into the refrigerator to chill at least 6 hours. We want it to get nice, the gluten to relax, and it to get nice and cold and firm. So at least 6 hours. You could do this like I typically do, make my pastry the day before, let it chill overnight, because you can let this pastry actually chill up to 3 days in your refrigerator, or you can also freeze it up to 3 months. So I'm just going to finish this off, put it in the refrigerator and let it chill for 6 hours, and then when we come back, we will roll out our pastry. So now we're ready to roll out our pastry. It typically is quite cold, so what you might want to do is let it sit on the counter or between your hands just to warm it up a bit, or just, of course, when we're rolling, put a little flour down. You can just bang it with your rolling pin to soften it if you find, because if it starts to, when you're rolling, if it starts to break, crack, then you know it's too cold. So what we're going to do is roll this. This is my tart ring. Like I said, that's 4 inches, which is 10 centimeters. So I'm going to roll this into about a 5.5 inch, which is 14 centimeter round, to fit my ring. And as always, when you're rolling out pastry, you want to kind of keep it in that round shape. You want to start with a round and keep it in a round. Makes it easier. So as you're rolling, just keep turning it. And then if you find if it's getting into a square instead of a round, you can always just go around and put it back into shape. But if you keep turning it as you're rolling, that does help. Now you could use a ruler for this, or what I do is I have my tart ring here, and then I just put it there, and I want a little, like maybe a 1/2 inch, 1.5 centimeters beyond my tart ring. Now we are going to roll this, and then we are going to take the extra step of chilling this again for maybe 15 to 30 minutes, because every time you work with your pastry, you're stretching it, and then you want it to rest in between so that when we do bake off our tarts, our tart shells, because we have to pre-bake them, we don't get any shrinkage where, you know, it starts off at the top of the rim, and then you end up, when it comes out of the oven, it's not at the top of the rim. We don't want that to happen. So that's why we're going to take that extra step of just letting it chill for a bit. So that's about right. So what I've done is I have a baking sheet, parchment lined, or you could just have some plastic wrap. And then just put that there like that, and then I'm going to keep rolling. And then we're going, like I said, we're going to chill this for about 15 minutes. And then when we come back, we will put them into our tart rings. So now we are ready to put our pastry into our tart ring. Now, because you can see these kind of tart rings do not have a bottom, so what I've done is taken a baking sheet and put a piece of parchment, and that's going to be the bottom, and then I'm just going to put that on there. Now these tart rings are about 3/4 of an inch, 2 centimeters high, as you can see. So just put that there, and then I take my pastry, and the important thing whenever you're putting pastry into a pan is not to pull. You want to gently work it around, and you want to make sure, like, to really press down those sides, because we want like a nice, as you can see here, a really nice edge. So just work your way, pressing down. Now, if it rips a little, do not worry. This pastry is extremely forgiving. Just, you know, patch it up. So just press all the way down around. And then you want to make sure, once you've got it, you feel like it's pressed down, you want to make sure, take your finger and work it into the crease at the bottom, because we want that nice straight sides to our baked tarts. So, okay, and that looks good. So then, of course, the top's a little messy, so I take just a knife and just cut all the way around. So, looks good. Scraps out of the way. And then I'm just going to, now, you want the sides to be an even thickness, and sometimes we do not roll perfectly. So if you find you're kind of running, you can kind of feel it, then if here, like say here, you think, oh, it's not thick enough, just take a little bit of your pastry and just put it in there and just work it in. So that's what you do. Make sure that bottom. So now what you want to do once you finish this is to cover it with some plastic wrap, put it back into the refrigerator again. We're going to let that just relax a little and chill. And while that's happening, you want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius, because we are going to bake off our pastry shells completely, because the key lime filling does not need a very long baking time. That is why we are going to pre-bake our shells. So when we come back, that's what we're going to do. So now we are ready to bake our pastry crust. The big problem when you try to bake a pastry crust without a filling is it will puff up. So what way you prevent that is to take a piece of parchment paper or foil and put that in. Now if you're doing one large one, it's the same thing. And then just fit it in there. And then we have to weigh it down because so the paper won't fly up on us. So you can actually buy pie weights, or you can do what I do, is just go to your grocery store and buy the cheapest bag of dried beans you can find. And now, once you use them for this, you're not going to cook with them. What I do is I let them, after I do this, I let them cool and I put them in a bag, and the next time I'm doing pre-baking a pie crust, I use them again, and they'll last for years. So what you want to do is make sure that the beans go right to the edge and all the way to the top, and that'll weigh it down like so. And now what we're going to do is bake these for about 20 minutes. What you want to do is you want to see, you can kind of look and see that your pastry is browning on the sides and it's kind of dry. That's when you know. But I find about 20 minutes and then we will check them. Okay, so it's been about 20 minutes, so I am going to check. So just take out as carefully as possible. You kind of see how I'm doing this. That's why I have the parchment paper a little bigger. So my sides are nicely browned, but the bottom, because of the parchment paper, is still just a little wet. So I'm going to put these back, take all the parchment and the beans, put them back in the oven, you know, maybe 3-4 minutes, just until the bottom looks dry. It's just very lightly browned. Okay, so tart shells are done. Did you touch them? Feel nice and dry. So now what we're going to do is we're going to just put your baking sheet on a wire rack and we're going to let them cool completely, and then when we come back we are going to make our key lime filling. So now for our key lime filling, you will need 3 large egg yolks, that's 52 grams, and have them at room temperature. And then I've just have a mixing bowl. You can use your stand mixer with the paddle attachment. I'm just using a hand mixer here. And I'm going to beat these, you know, for a couple minutes. I want to get them kind of fluffy, a little bit of air into them. So medium, high speed. Okay, so that's what you're looking for. A little nice and thick. So I didn't say, but keep your oven preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius, because we do have to bake this filling because we have egg yolks. So our second ingredient you will need is 1 14-ounce can, which is about 395 grams of sweetened condensed milk. Here it is. This is a mixture of whole milk and sugar that's been cooked until most of the water has evaporated, so it's very thick and sticky and very sweet. And so what I'm going to do is, with my mixer on, I'm going to gradually pour in the can and then just beat it until everything's all mixed together and nice and thick. And then our last ingredient, most important, key lime juice. So this is a key lime. You can usually buy them, at least where I buy them, it kind of comes in this bag, and it takes. We need a half a cup, which is 120 milliliters, 120 grams of key lime juice, which, as you can see, these are very small, and you need a lot. Probably 30 at least, and then because you don't get a lot of juice out of one of these little things. And then what I've done is take my measuring cup, because there's lots of seeds, so I've put a strainer and then you just squeeze it. I find it easy to use my fingers, takes a little bit. So I have done, as you can see, I have done this off camera. So that's what you do. Now, as you can see, it's quite a bit different than a regular lime. And I find the key lime juice, it's really less tart or acidic than a regular lime. Some people like to buy key lime. You can buy a bottle of key lime juice. We're making it with the actual key limes today. So, or I mean, if push comes to shove, you could use, maybe it won't be quite as authentic. Key lime pie is named after where it was invented, Key Lime, Florida, which is where key limes come from. Just a little trivia. And so what I'm going to do is just have my mixer on and pour this in. And that's that. I mean, is that not easy? I love this filling. And then if you want, you could, I'm just going to add a little bit of the zest, which is the outer green skin, about, teaspoon. You can leave it out. Now, although we're using limes and they're green, the filling is not, it's yellow. So people sometimes mistake this for a lemon tart, but it isn't. One bite and you will know. So now, I'm just going to pour it in here, make it a little easier, and we're going to pour this into our tart shells. The reason we pre-baked our pastry crust, because this filling does not take very long to bake. Maybe 10 to 15 minutes, depending on your oven. So that's why we bake them ahead of time. So now just pour it in, about 3/4 full. Put a little more in each one. As you can see, this is very thick. That sweetened condensed milk is thick. And then the egg yolks are what sets the filling. Looks good. And then I just kind of shake them to kind of even out that. And so now, so what you're looking for, I find usually about 12 minutes. You want them set. But still, they look a little wet in the center. Whoop. So that's how you can tell. So about 10 to 15 minutes. Okay. So our key lime tarts are now done. I put the pan on a wire rack. As you can see, if I kind of shake the pan, they're set, but they're still, you can see they're a little wet in the center. Now, I really need to apologize to everyone living in Florida. Rick told me, I said that the pie was invented in Key Lime, Florida, which is ridiculous. Florida Keys. Sorry, everyone. All I can say in my defense is after squeezing 35 key limes, I had them on the brain. So now, what we're going to do is I'm going to let these cool down, and then I'm going to put them into the refrigerator to chill, and because I want to put whipped cream on them. And so I'm going to let them chill probably a couple hours in the fridge, and then when we come back, we will put whipped cream on them. So now, our tarts have chilled for a couple hours, so I just want to take the rings off, and you can see they just come right off. And if I turn that over, you can just see the bottom of the pastry crust is a beautiful golden brown. So now, just like key lime pie or tarts, they can have a graham cracker crust, or they can have what we have here, a pastry crust. There's also different toppings. You can have a meringue on top, or my personal favorite, and what we're going to do today, is whipped cream. So if you have a stand mixer, use your whisk attachment, or really you can just whip your cream in a large bowl with a wire whisk. A little more work, but either way. So you will need 1 cup, which is 240 milliliters of cold, heavy cream or heavy whipping cream. And that's cream with the 35 to 40% butterfat content, which means that when you whip it, it will reach stiff peaks. That's how you know. And then I'm going to sweeten my cream. I'm just going to use about 1 tablespoon, 15 grams of granulated white sugar, or you could use powdered sugar here or confectioner sugar. You can vary the amount of sugar depending on how sweet you like your cream. So now I'm going to beat this just until it comes up to nice peaks. Be careful because you can go from a liquid to like butter if you're not careful. Okay, I'm going to check my cream. So that looks good. It's better to under whip and check it than to over whip. Now, if you do over whip, which does happen, what you can do, it's not like racked. What you can do is just add a little more of your heavy whipping cream in here, and then just, what I do is just then take a wire whisk and then just beat it. So you can save it. So that looks good. So now you don't have to pipe onto your top. You can just take a spoon and put a dollop. But I'm going to, I've got a pastry bag here fitted with a star tip. You could use a plain tip. And what I do is I usually put it in a glass. So that way I have both hands free and I can put my cream in there. Let's put some. Okay. And press it all down, try to get the air out until it, okay, and then twist the bag and hold it in one hand, your other hand is a guide, and then my favorite, swirls. It's kind of what I like. So, like so. You could cover the whole if you like lots of whipped cream. You could cover the whole thing, but I think that looks nice. So there we have Key Lime Tarts. Now you could serve them right away, or you can make them early in the day and let them sit in the refrigerator. My personal preference is to even let them sit overnight. I find the flavors kind of soften and mingle, but either way is excellent. Good thing is these will store in the refrigerator for quite a few days, so I'm just going to use my knife, a little bit. Such a pretty dessert. You got that pastry crust. It's crisp, yet it kind of melts. It's very tender. Slight almond flavor, which I think pairs very nicely to the key lime filling. Key limes, you know, they're acidic, but they have such a unique flavor. And then, of course, it's kind of sweet with sweetened condensed milk. And then top it off with a little bit of whipped cream. Perfect dessert. They're so pretty, you can make them ahead. Try these. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.